Today on Rambling About Cars, horsepower, racing. I need an echo mic to really make that work. But we're talking about power. We're talking about the Aston Martin DBX707 super duper SUV. We're talking about racing, the Acura NSX Type S, the Rolex 24. Just a whole bunch going on. So without further ado, it's podcast time. I'm Christopher Smith, and you know my co-host, Mr. Chris Bruce.
Hello, everyone. And we have two guests with us tonight. We have Seyth Miersma, and we have Alanis King. Alanis is a first-time guest here on the show. She covers racing extensively, but you can also see her on Jalopnik, on Motor Trend. You have a podcast called Racing Spaces. Is that right, that you're on?
I do. It's kind of a podcast. It's kind of not a podcast. So basically what we do is Twitter has a live audio broadcast function, and we do that every week. And we have a bunch of drivers come, and we do all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of a podcast, kind of not a podcast. It's a thing that happens.
It's an audio experience.
It's an audio experience. There we go. I love that.
And you know a little bit about racing, and we were talking before the podcast, like, Bruce, how did we get through over a year of rambling about cars without really talking about racing? That's going to happen tonight. So we're super excited, Alanis, that you're here. Seyth, I mean, we're kind of excited that you're here too.
Yeah.
No, we're stoked that Seyth is here because he drove the Acura down to Daytona.
And you have less choice with me, right?
Well, we totally need to hear about Acura. We need to hear about racing. But first, where do we want to start, Bruce?
Oh, well, we're going to start with the Aston Martin DBX707, which I keep wanting to call the 007 just because of Aston Martin's relationship with Bond. I think
it's not the 007. It doesn't have 7 horsepower. It's the 707.
It's the 707.
It doesn't have 707 horsepower either, though. It has 697 horsepower. 707 is their metric horsepower rating, so that's what they're going for. And yes, this just came out just earlier this week, and that's the thing. 707 horsepower. Sorry, 697 horsepower. Aston Martin's even messing with my head on this. They're claiming 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, and they also aren't shy about saying they're going to go after the Nürburgring SUV record. I know some people are like, Nürburgring records, whatever. Like it or not, it does help in the PR department, right? When you're selling a $232,000 SUV, which, spoiler alert, that's what this is going to cost when it goes on sale later this year. If you can say, hey, I have the fastest SUV, fastest production SUV that goes around the Nürburgring, you know what? That'll mean something. 707 horsepower. It still has the twin turbo V8, but they upgrade the turbos. They tweak the engine mapping a little bit. They give it an all new exhaust system. They change the intake a little bit. Underneath, it's riding on it's the same basic suspension setup, but they've tweaked the dampers, the springs. They've done a little bit of electronic wizardry with the control systems to try to make it handle a little bit better. They say that they've managed body roll a little bit more, squat and dive a little bit more. Point being, they don't just want to make something with gobs of power that goes fast in a straight line. They are legitimately serious about having a vehicle that handles. And I was on a roundtable with Aston Martin. Funny story there. There was just a few of us on the roundtables speaking with Aston Martin CEO Tobias Mears. And sorry, Seyth, I should probably apologize to you here. For some reason, it just didn't click to me. It's like, okay, we got the Zoom link. Okay, it'll just be a bunch of people sitting in, listening around, tossing in some questions. Fortunately, with Seyth as our new boss, I no longer roll out of bed 2 minutes before work, coming into my home office looking like Satan's hangover. So I'm at least prepared on that point. But it's like, okay, we're on Zoom. Oh, now everybody's on camera. Oh, there's 6 of us. So
yeah,
I was talking with Aston Martin's CEO, with Voltron, Defender of the Universe, guarding behind me. But hey, it all worked out good. We learned. When I asked him about going after ring records, that was one of the questions I asked. And it's like he didn't even hesitate. I mean, it's like he snapped right up. He's like, 738.9. Should we go for that? It's like he has the number down to the 10th of a second in his head. And he was like,
oh, sorry.
No, I'm just rambling away.
Right.
I'm curious, what is the current record holder in the SUV department for what is the production record holder for an SUV at the ring?
That's the Porsche. The Cayenne PT Turbo. 7 minutes, 38.9 seconds. I mean, and he had that right on the top of his head. So it's like, well, obviously they've been thinking about that, and he wasn't shy at all about saying, yeah, I think we're going to go for that. And he was saying that they're close already just with their testing on regular Pirelli tires, not the really super sticky stuff. So I'm pretty excited to see what they do with it around the ring. I guess I fall into the camp of, is a Nordschleife time really that relevant? It's such a long track. I mean, you can just about any driver can shave another 10th or another a second or two off a lap just by catching a corner a little bit better. But PR, if they go after it in the spring when it goes on sale, we'll see what they do.
I just think it's interesting. Whether it's relevant or not, I think it's an open question, especially for an SUV. But since Aston has like significant history and races, Nürburgring 24, right? Like they sort of, it's a place where they compete, like in their actual racing products too. So the idea that even their SUV, certainly their most high-powered SUV, could set a record there, I think makes a lot of sense for them. Insofar as any of these things make sense, like any of the ring records make sense. But
I'm just stuck on the 707 part. Like, I feel like 707 in my head, all I think about is Hellcat, even though the Hellcat has moved to 717 horsepower. The number 707 in my head is Hellcat. So I'm like, did they Hellcat the DBX? Like, like, it just has it trademarked in my head. And so 707 is a very interesting number.
But it's not really 707. They get you with that title. They say it's 707, but it's 707 metric horsepower. Pferdestärke, as they call it in Germany. It's actually 698. So they want you to think it's 707.
But I agree though, because the branding, because the name, it's got 707 in the name. It's a little bit like the Escalade having the 600 on it, even though that number is sort of meaningless to anybody. It's clearly meaningful to Cadillac and maybe if you're actually driving the car. But yeah, I thought the same thing, Alanis. When I saw the 707, I was like, is there something kind of inherent in like making a high horsepower V8 engine that makes it make 700? Like, is 707 like a natural place to stop or land? Or is that it like a product of like a transmission? Like, is that the max level of torque a transmission can handle or something? But it's probably just coincidence and sort of a memorable number.
I think Alanis might be right that it's marketing, that there is this mental thing that we've been hearing 707 from Hellcat for so long that you hear that and it immediately tweaks something in your mind and you say, oh, that's a Hellcat's got that. Hellcat's fast. Right. This is fast too. Like there's this little, quick jump in your head that happens.
Well, another interesting point there, Aston Martin made it a point to say it's the most powerful luxury SUV in the world. And to that tune, how many luxury SUVs or just even muscle SUVs have 600 horsepower? So if you're going to say 697, it's sort of like the 99-cent thing, right? It's not $1, it's 99 cents. It's less than $1. This isn't 697. It's 707. It's in the 700 range, not the 600 range. So I think that plays in there too. And I think there's a little bit of play on with Bond with 007. This is 707. It's close. Will we see it in a future movie? Actually, that was one of the questions that came up. And did
they say anything?
They said, yeah, we have no idea.
So here's the big brain move. Do the DBX707 and it only has 4 horsepower. That's 7 metric. This is the move. We have a 007 with 4 horsepower. It looks like a golf cart. It'd be great.
It's the Lego version
for the ride-on version. Or the baby. Doesn't Aston is one of the companies that does the little Power Wheels.
Yes. They do. Yeah. Yes. I
know McLaren does for sure, but I assume
McLaren. We've seen. I think we've seen Astons. We've seen Land Rovers.
So Smith. I was just gonna say I'm really excited. I'm getting my first, not the 707, but I'm getting my first drive of a DBX in a couple of weeks. Knock wood, if everything goes right. Scheduled to be in one, and been working with Aston on doing a story. So I'm really excited about this because I've been thinking a lot about DBX and kind of what it means in the space. I haven't been in other. I mean, I've been in Cayennes and Macans, but I've never been in the kind of ultra luxury, the Lamborghini, the Aston Martin. I haven't been in any of these like sort of new next level sport SUVs, and I think it's just a crazy interesting space right now.
Well,
it's so odd, but they're also probably very, very good, right? Like,
but that's the thing. Like, is this better than a DBS or a DB9 or a DB11? Like,
well, it depends if you're sitting in the back seat.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right?
Yeah,
Seth, it's interesting that you're talking about Porsche because Aston Martin, once again, they weren't shy at all about saying they were benchmarking Porsche on this. Yeah. They mentioned, Tobias Mears mentioned, I drove the Urus, but it's really all about Porsche. Porsche is where they're at in his mind as far as not just power, but driving dynamics in performance SUVs. So as you're driving DBX, keep in mind, I mean, they benchmarked the 707 on Porsche. I imagine there's going to be some Porsche influence in the standard model as well. And when this is set to go on sale later this year, like I said in the beginning, $232,000 is not going to be cheap by any means. But with power and luxury comes a little bit of a cost.
So Smith, I had a question for you, and we didn't discuss this beforehand. I don't know if you asked this question, or if someone else during the roundtable did, but it came up the future of the V12 within Aston Martin, which since the late 90s has kind of been synonymous with that brand, whether you're talking Vantage or just a lot of other models like Aston Martin V12. That's, obviously they have their V8 models, but like the V12 is where it's at. And they're saying it like 2025, 2026 is kind of the end of the run, which we're in 2022 now. So 3 to 4 years and no more V12s. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Sure. The main takeaway there was the Euro 7 regulations most likely are going to go into effect 2025. I don't know the specifics of the regulations, but it's basically going to make any sort of high power V12 naturally aspirated. It's just they're not going to be able to meet regulations. So at that point, it's like if you want to put out a vehicle, if you want to put out a supercar, you're going to have to find something other than a big V12 to do it. And that's what Tobias Mears was talking about and there were questions throughout the entire roundtable about the V12 and. Stepping from one question to the next question to the next question, the takeaway was, and I think he even said directly, 2026, 2027, all V12s are gone anyways. And he wasn't just talking about Aston. He was talking about any naturally aspirated V12. They're gone anyways because they just won't meet emissions. So they have to look at something else. In the meantime, they're going to keep developing the engine that they have. And they think there's a little more performance potential into it. And they're going to hold on to it as long as they can. But 2026, 2027, somewhere around there, that's it.
So Seth, Alanis, what's your take?
I mean, my take is that we're all going to be sad about the V12, not having new V12s and stuff like that. But people are extremely adaptable. We all hated the BMW grill when it came out, and now we're like, it looks fine, whatever. So by the time V12s are gone, it's going to be like, look at these cool electric cars. Look at these cool hybrids. We have short attention spans, and we adapt quickly. It's sad, end of an era, things like that. But, we got used to the BMW nose, didn't we?
Well, I think some of us have, and so we're still very split on it as a staff, at the very least. But
interesting. Okay. So you're split on it as a staff. I just look at it and I'm like, whatever. Cool.
I understand that it exists, but it's hideous. That's the best you can do.
Yes. Don't get me wrong. I don't love it, but I accept that it is a thing. And I'm like,
right. I accept it because there's no alternative, but
exactly.
It's bad by any measure of design. Yes. It's bad.
And we are going to accept that V12s are gone because who's going to make them for us, right?
But they won't really be gone. There'll still be older cars with V12s. If you want to have a V12, they'll be boutique automakers like Gordon Murray still coming up with something. Maybe you'll only be able to buy 50 of them. Maybe that's all they'll make is 50, but that's still going to be around for a while. And I'm with you on this whole evolution thing. When you go back to say like the early 1900s, I promise you, there were people walking around saying, I will never get into one of those soulless automobiles, a horse with its stride and the mane and just the smell and the feel of the horse. You will never get me into a soulless automobile.
I'm still saying
we've had this discussion before. Yeah.
Like I still say that I'm not going to get into one of those soulless automobiles. That's how I got into this profession. Like, as you can tell.
So one, I think that Lamborghini is going to keep making V12s. I don't want to go too deep in that because I think that we've got some reporting coming on that, but I don't think that V12s I think maybe Tobias spoke too soon. Also, Tobias, come on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely. I'll remove Voltron this time, so you won't be distracted.
He probably likes Voltron. Everyone likes Voltron.
It's old. It's a collectible now. It's not just me being a nerd.
Here's my like 30 seconds on V12s. They're rarely that good. They're mostly where there's a vehicle that offers, especially in the last like 10 years, that offers an 8-cylinder, a V8, whether it's naturally aspirated or in most cases turbo or supercharged, or a V12. Mercedes being like a primary, and BMW being like big contenders here. The 12 is kind of worthless. It's a badge almost. I mean, I don't like. They're fine. They're nice to drive, but they don't feel worth often a premium of $70,000-$80,000 over the lesser model, right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. And also, you're going down the highway and you have cylinder deactivation. Right. You're using half the cylinders anyway. Like, you've got 12 of them. You're using like 6. Right. And there are extra cylinders to break that have to be like, no. I don't want to deal with it. I'm not using them anyway.
Get them out of here.
It's become very romanticized over the years.
Yeah.
You want your glorious Italian car with your glorious Italian V12, and with modern technology, especially with the V8s with forced induction. Yeah. And then electric, that's just going to make it all go away anyways.
Alanis, thank you so much for helping me with this segue. You were talking about V12s only running on half of their cylinders. Well, here's a V6 we can talk about. Because Seth drove
smooth. Look at that.
Because Seth drove the Acura NSX Type S. And Seth, I don't know the answer to this question, so this is my first time. Did you only get to do the 3 laps around Daytona? You didn't get to drive it on the road at all, period?
That's right. Okay. And it's not even really...
3 laps, okay, is your experience.
And 3 laps is actually not even completely accurate because it was like out 1 flying lap and then in. So it's more like 2.25 or 2.5 or something like that, right? It was I think Acura's standpoint was this, the car is super impressive. It's also incredibly limited and sold out right now, right? So we're at Daytona where they're racing in multiple classes. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but very successfully this weekend, this past weekend. They thought, what a cool opportunity to put a few journalists into the swan song for the second generation NSX, as far as we know, the Type S, the first Type S sold outside of Japan, and do it in a spectacular fashion, right? So the environment was amazing. I've been to Daytona one other time, but I was there for a few hours before. This was my first big time at Daytona, and getting to even if it was 1 lap, I don't care. Even if it was a parade lap, getting to drive on Daytona was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. Being able to be on that track, being able to do it in a car that I've always cared a great deal for, was really special too. But yeah, that's why it's been fascinating. I think Clint Simone, our director of video, put this on Twitter earlier, and I was doing the same thing. He said that he's read all the stories because there aren't that many of them when the embargo lifted today. And it's really interesting to see how everybody sort of deals with the same problem, where it's like a super short experience, getting driving impressions out of this. You guys probably understand, for me, I'm old, my brain is calcified. It takes me a long time to get an impression. To figure out what the car is actually doing usually takes me a day, right? Or at least a couple of hours. So to do this in 7 or 8 minutes was was frankly pretty tough, but absolutely worthwhile.
The experience on a track is far different from the experience on the road. It's not the surface is different. The way you're driving the car is different. There are a few parallels you can make. So you just kind of have to boil it down into trying to experience everything you can into, like you said, those 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah. And like beyond that too, like, you know, we're all, I think people who've been in this business for a while, like are pretty experienced with driving sports cars on the track. Most people haven't done a ton of driving on a super speedway, right? Like on a bank, on banked turns, which just changes everything completely because the road is doing so much work for you at speed, obviously. Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's not, this is not my most kind of in-depth review in terms of like what the car is actually doing. It's more about like the vibe. Right. And
it's very experiential. I recommend people to go read it because it's very much more about what it feels like to do this than, you know, maybe some like driving impressions. It's a good piece.
Yeah, it is absolutely a good piece. I read it earlier. You want to go to motor1.com and read it. It's headlining. Well, it's headlining as we record, but if it's not still up on the main slider, search for Acura NSX Type S.
Seth has probably the top result. Yeah.
Seth has a wonderful way with the words. I did read it this afternoon. Such a great story. And I think it's impressive that Acura even let anybody do that anyways, because like you said, Seth, these are sold out. They don't need PR. They don't need people saying, hey, we drove this car. It handles really well. We think you should go buy it. They're already gone. This is just well, I guess they could use it to sell some of the regular NSX models, but
and the thing is, it's what they're doing is like a small piece of a really important bit of storytelling for the brand, right? Think of it as the same thing that they're doing. Like I said, the same. It's kind of an extension of what they're doing at the track to begin with. Why do companies go racing? They go racing because, you know, there's always kind of a story that there's this technology transfer that race cars end up getting some of the bits that road cars get. And you know, like I will say that when I was talking to some of the we had really good access to both people at Acura, like on the company side, Honda Acura, and then on the different racing teams. You know, there was a lot of conversation. They were saying that for the GTD Pro cars, which is the more like the GT car version of that we're racing at Daytona or racing in IMSA, you can. Something like a high percentage of the parts that could break on the car were available sort of at the dealership, right? Like there was more of a relationship between that car and the standard NSX. Now I haven't vetted that. Like I don't know what the number is, but the point is putting their new sort of Halo car, even though it's sold out, like everybody's running, all the media are running the story of it driving on the track, really hammers home that story that we are a racing brand. And I think if you rewind, you guys would probably agree, everybody here was covering this industry, you know, a few years ago, certainly pre-NSX launch. There's all this talk that people sort of longed for the Acura of the 90s and, you know, early 2000s even. But that it felt like that heritage, that performance heritage had gone away. And I think NSX was obviously a huge salvo in fighting that and getting this car back on the track with the racing teams. Is a way of them saying like, hey, we're on the same level as, BMW and Mercedes and, you know, to a lesser extent right now, Lexus, right? But brands that have a real performance history and a real racing program. So
what really surprised you about the Type S? Was there any one thing that just you were totally not expecting?
I think honestly, because it's been a long time since I've been in one, I think the last time I was in the car was, 2018. Might have been 2017. So it's been years. I forgot as a large man with wearing a helmet, especially, I forgot how comfortable and sort of roomy the car is. I was reading Brad Brownell's story at Jalopnik too, and Brad's a couple inches shorter than me, and he was mentioning kind of like this procedure of getting in, and all people are sort of shaped differently, and it kind of like surprised me a little bit because I didn't need to do that. I could just step in the car. Like, you know, I ducked my head under and you bang it on the sill a little bit when you're getting in. But actually being inside the car was like far more comfortable than I remember. A lot of times when I'm in a sports car with a helmet on, I'm like, my head is tipped just a little bit. to try and keep my helmet off the roof when I'm driving. And that wasn't the case here. So overall, even at speed, you guys, even at 120, 25 miles an hour, it's a really easy car to drive super fast. And I think that bore out like on the track, just like it does on the road. I think maybe if anything, it's sort of funny. If anything, that might be the real DNA of NSX through two very, very different generations is, the original one was kind of the everyday sports car. That was, how Honda really marketed it and engineered it to be. And I think this car is that on a totally different level, where it's not stressful to drive even really quickly. So that wasn't, I guess that was surprising early on. It's just like kind of a surprising memory, like that this is such a approachable car, even for something with crazy, crazy limits that I could never reach. Right.
Alanis, you were at Daytona too. Did you get a chance to drive the Acura?
I wanted to. I text people all week leading up to it because I found out that they were doing this NSX drive, and I was like, "Hey, why haven't I heard about that?" And so I was texting people all week, like, "All right, I'm gonna nudge Acura and get them to let me go out there." And then they were like, "Oh no, it turns out we only have 30 minutes, so we're literally gonna get like one actual flying lap, and there's not gonna be space for you." And I was like,
Oh.
So I was going to try, but then I realized there's not going to be space for me. And I was so sad, so heartbroken. I wanted to drive that car and I wanted to like nudge him and tell him to let me drive it. But some other time.
So Seyth, I wanted to bring up a greater point surrounding the second generation NSX with you, because like you've said, you just drove the Type S and you've also driven the original. And it feels like if you just kind of take the temperature of things, there's the second gen in terms of sales has not necessarily been the success that Acura wanted it to be, but yet I have not really heard a bad review of the second gen NSX. Everyone I hear who drives them, maybe there's a niggle here or there, something like that. But for the most part, people are very positive about this car, but it hasn't translated into the sales success, especially of like the first generation that we saw, where people laud that car as like a game changer. And it seems like this should have been as well with, the 3 electric motors, all-wheel drive, twin turbo V6. Like it had, if you look at it on paper, it looks like it should just knock things out of the park. But if you look at the sales numbers, it has never reflected that. And I was wondering if you had an opinion as to why that's been, or do you think I'm crazy for saying that?
No, I mean, I think first and foremost, and this is what everybody has to deal with kind of in this segment, 911 is a real hard car to go against, and 911 spans the gap from, I don't know what it is now, 100,000, let's say at the base up to well over 200,000 with variants that are GT cars and convertibles, just sort of like fun sports cars, and variants that are really hardcore track cars and variants that are insanely hardcore track cars, right? They really have this covered, and they've been doing it for 60, 70 years, right? So I think that's one in terms of like the sales, like it's really, a 911 is a really easy sort of default sports car to buy. If you're going to spend $100,000 on a sports car, it's hard to make an argument against 911. The other point is, I don't know, like I haven't looked at, I don't actually know what Acura's sales goals for NSX would be. Like this car we know is limited to 350 units worldwide. I talked a little bit to Acura PR about why that was, like what that number was based on. And they said it really was a combination of, honestly, like they want the car to sell out, right? It's not a car that they want to have a lot of them sitting around. Not that it would ever be on a lot, right? But they wouldn't want to have like extra inventory for it. So they wanted to have a number that they know that they could hit. But I think more importantly, like these are hand-built cars. They're built, they're built in the US, but they really are like hand-built
in Ohio.
In Ohio, right? Yeah, go Ohio. Acura, I think like a lot of other companies too, like recognizes that there's a certain amount of like production constraints around this car and other ones too. So whether or not that played into it, I don't know. I don't know that I ever heard a number for NSX. Like sometimes you will later in a life cycle hear like, yeah, we really are targeting, 10,000 cars or 5,000 cars or 1,000, whatever it is. I don't know that I ever read any reporting on that, but
I just looked it up. They sold 124 last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be a super niche car. Last year not the last year, but it, you'll sell more in year 1 and 2 than you will,
of course,
a little bit later down the road. It's also it's incredibly competitive. Think of all the things that you could get in this space that do sort of the same thing, right? Like,
Smith, I think you and I talked about this, but the Corvette, I feel like it came out. 2 years later, something like that. And it did a lot of the same things if you look at just in terms of performance on paper.
Right.
But it did it at a lower price. And also it's a Corvette. And
I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this, but my gut feeling is that this is not a price sensitive segment. You're starting at $150,000. I think it's much more about like, what does the car say about me when I'm driving it? Like, how do I feel about the brand? And Acura, like, if they're going to continue to build on this reputation, I think that they probably have to do another NSX. They're doing like the new Integra. They have to like continue to expand on this kind of performance reputation that they've had. And so when you're looking at competitors, I don't think that Acura has kind of a home field advantage with a big owner base that have had many of these cars that are going to be buying it. Certainly nowhere near, again, like 911, Corvette. Even cars, in the relevant price range from Aston. Audi R8, I think, is a car that like right now is has more a longer kind of continuous history of ownership and people buying it than some of the other ones too. So it's a tough space. Like it's a tough, very competitive space and very fashionable in some cases. So yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. It'd be interesting to ask Acura, like, how many of these did you think you were going to sell when you sort of launched it back in 2016, 2017?
Alanis, have you gotten to drive the NSX at all?
I love that thing.
Why?
I love it. I don't even have I don't have a detailed explanation as to why, because let me tell you, the day I drove that car, I was at a track day. At Tlotnick, we decided to book a staff track day just for fun because everything
where are we doing
bad.
that?
Everything was bad. So we booked a staff track day at Monticello Motor Club. And I was so ill that day. I was so sick that I was like a sheet of printer paper. I was clammy. It was awful. I pulled up to the racetrack in the Hyundai Veloster Inn for the first time that day, and it was like 1:00 in the afternoon because I was so sick. I hadn't gone out there. I pulled up to the racetrack, and Justin Wispert goes, "Are you sure you're going to go out there?" And I was like, "Justin, shut up. I'm fine. if you ask me another question, I'm going to puke. Don't ask me more questions. Just let me go."
That's hardcore. I puke when I go out feeling fine.
Well, yeah. And so I was so ill. It was awful. It was literally the worst day. But that day I drove the NSX on track and I was like, I don't even know what's going on, but I do know that I like this and this car rocks. And that is all I got from that because I was so not there. I was so ill. That is all I got from that. I was like, this car is great.
Is there video of this experience? Did you have a GoPro in the car with you?
No, I did not have a GoPro in the car with me. I did not. I'm sad that I didn't. But my entire takeaway from that day was this thing rips. And I'm going to go throw up.
So, Bruce, have you driven the NSX?
I have not, unfortunately. I have not driven the first or second-gen NSX.
So Acura, there are 3 people here that need another go in the NSX. That's Alanis needs to re-experience that. Bruce and I need to experience it for the first time. Seyth, you drove the Type S, so
I'm fine. I'm covered.
You'll just have to wait for the Type R that they haven't talked about yet.
Honda, I am 2 hours away from Marysville. I'm right there. I drive by there whenever I have to go to my mother-in-law's. We can work something out.
I'm a little further.
Yeah, you are a little further.
we're just about to the point where we need to start talking about some racing that I'm super excited about.
Totally.
But first, if you haven't already, listeners, go to Motor One Podcast, our YouTube channel, like, follow, subscribe, smash every single button that you see there. Go to us at motor1.com. You can see our articles on the podcast that go up every Friday, right around about 10 a.m. Eastern time, Bruce, they go up?
Anywhere between 9:30 and 10:30, depending on things. Anywhere between 9:30 and 10:30 a.m. Eastern, I can guarantee.
And we also have our audio audience that's listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, something like a dozen different platforms. You want to do all of that before we jump into racing.
Wait, real quick. And I know I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but Spotify is now doing podcast reviews. So if you happen to be a Spotify listener and you haven't reviewed us on there, please go ahead and do that. And then obviously, if you haven't reviewed us on Apple Podcasts by now, please do. If you're up to we're on episode 57 now, so do that. But definitely Spotify, that's a new thing. So if you can do that, please do.
Do that. Now, do we want to talk about some comments? We haven't done comments for a couple weeks here. We have some listeners that we should probably
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, we have some listeners that we should probably acknowledge here. Let me bring up one. First of all, Seth, it's good that you're back on the program because our buddy Josiah, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about just some of our favorite eras of automotive design. I may have said, allegedly, is there an Italian car from the 1960s that didn't look fantastic?
Josiah has one.
Josiah sent an email to podcast@motor1.com, which you can do as well, listeners, podcast@motor1.com. He sent an email simply saying, I found it. Well, simply saying I found it.
It's worth saying he took several days. This did not come out right afterwards. I think he was looking.
True. This is true. It took a little while. He said, I found it, but I don't necessarily agree that he found it. He's talking about the 1960 Fiat Multipla.
Yep.
Am I saying that right?
Gen.
Multipla?
You're right.
Yeah.
I can't be right because I always mispronounce stuff.
No, you got this one.
I mean, I've seen that car before.
It's not ugly. It's just.
I don't think it's ugly.
Beautiful.
It's odd. It's one of those cars where it looks like the backward. It should be going forward. When it's going forward, it looks like it's going backwards. Just because it has the slab-sided front with kind of the sloping rear. It's the doors. It's just two doors right in the middle.
It's like if you took a BMW Isetta and you put it in a pasta machine and stretched it out.
That is exactly what I was going to say. Yep, that is it right there.
In a pasta machine. It's okay. That's an interesting take. It's not ugly. Maybe it's not beautiful.
It's not beautiful, but yeah.
It's friggin' adorable, you guys. It's so cute. Josiah, I love you. Thank you for commenting and writing in.
Yes.
Of course. Josiah, I think, is our most frequent commenter. I think Josiah started commenting somewhere in our teens episodes and has done it every week since then. So, Josiah, as always, thank you for commenting.
Thank you. And proof again, send us your comments. We read them. We do read all of them. Yep. I know there's people out there like, well, they only read the positive ones. Send us negative ones. We'll read those too.
No.
We've done that in the past. So yeah, Josiah, thanks for sending that in. Going back through some of the other comments here on our YouTube from last week. Mark Gulickson, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right there. Glad you had John Fry on the show. His work has always been so inspiring. Retro futurism presented in such a unique way. Great job. Of course, if you missed our episode last week, John Fry, incredibly talented automotive artist in general, designer. He works for Honda, but he has an amazing Instagram page just full of some very, very unique things that he's done. We were very stoked to have him on the show. We also had a comment last week from Gino Nix. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right, but if I'm not, send a comment. Let me know. I had a CJ5, a Jeep CJ5 with a V8 when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. Very scary, but not then. I was going to live forever then. Thanks for the comment. That's in reference, Bruce, I think it was last week we were talking about the Bronco Raptor. You would ask.
You and I bet $5. I said towards the end of production, they will do a two-door Bronco Raptor, because I just think they have to do it, and you disagree. So we got a $5 bet that at some
we got
point,
a $5 bet going there, and I disagreed because anytime you have something with that short of a wheelbase, putting a lot of power in there is just a recipe for disaster. Even if
Alanis,
you
Seth,
think it's cool,
come on. What do you got? Weigh in on this.
I'm just thinking about the $5 thing because I keep offering NASCAR drivers $5 to do cartwheels, and that's like my magic number.
Wait,
and then
are people saying no? For $5, yeah.
people pay me $5 to not do
I did a shot
cartwheels.
of hot sauce that Clint Simone said his reaction was, "Oh my God, that's so much hotter than what Chris had." And I did that was my
what?
bad. 200 subscribers on YouTube?
That was
Listen,
my bad.
$5.
$5 is tempting. I have paid quite a lot. Oh wait, what's up, Seth?
How many yeses have you gotten? How many cartwheels have you done?
I have gotten very few no's, and I've gotten like 5 yeses. But that's for the $5 offer. That's for the $5 offer. I've gotten more of them to do it for free.
Okay.
So we went from $5 to I'm actually not going to pay you. Just do one.
I think if they're doing it for free, that's a sign of a good person, because a cartwheel, that's easy stuff, and that just makes people happy. So
Think for yourself. It's not easy for all of us,
Well,
can you name
fair.
some of the drivers that have done it for free? Shout them out for us.
So Romain Grosjean.
Ooh, cool.
Come on the podcast, Romain
Frenchman,
Grosjean.
yeah.
Come on, Romain Grosjean. So I did a broadcast for Andretti Autosport a few weeks ago where we had 18 of their drivers, 18 4-hour Twitter Spaces episode with 18 drivers who were rotating in and out, talking to me, and I was hosting them and having to ask them questions and stuff like that. So Romain Grosjean comes on, and last year Romain Grosjean did what's it called? What are they called? An RV tour of the United States. And I said, did you stop at any chain restaurants? And he said, yeah, I went to Cracker Barrel a lot. And I'm like, that's amazing. Wow. And so then I said, do you know how to do a cartwheel? And he said, I think I've done one before. And I was like, will you do a cartwheel for me? And he goes, yeah, sure. And so he logs off thinking that he's not going to have to do a cartwheel. And a couple hours later, Michael Andretti has come on, and Michael Andretti was not scheduled to come on. He decided to come on. So I'm talking to Michael Andretti about what he would do in the event of a zombie apocalypse. And we decided to form an island nation because zombies probably can't swim. And if they can swim, it'll take them a while. And we can fend them off. So we decided we're all going to an island. That's what we're going to do. And Romain Grosjean came up, and I said, where's my cartwheel? I haven't gotten it yet. And Romain yells, and he goes, there's not much room. The hallway is really skinny. And Michael Andretti goes, I have room in my office. Get in here and do one. And so Romain Grosjean comes into Michael Andretti's office. They get the phones out, and they start recording him. And he's like, ready? And they're like, yeah. And so he does a cartwheel, and then he does a little curtsy. He's like, there's my cartwheel. And
he's French, so curtsy's a good response.
Yes. And now, constantly, he just does cartwheels online. And then he does a little curtsy after his cartwheel. And I'm just like, I created a monster.
You got him on cartwheels. You got this guy cartwheeling. Before he was boring ass.
Romain Grosjean is a cartwheeler now, and I created a monster. Alexander Rossi did cartwheels for me that same day. I asked him to do a cartwheel, and he's like, I don't think I've done one. So then someone else comes on the broadcast, and they go, why is Rossi out in the hallway doing cartwheels? And somebody else goes, he's practicing. And I said, okay, somebody record him. And he would not let them record him yet because he was practicing and they weren't good enough yet. And then when we finally got to record him, he was in the narrow hallway and he did 2 in a row and he almost hit somebody who was carrying a laptop and the person had to dodge the cartwheel to not get hit by Alexander Rossi's legs. So, we've done a lot. I have my NASCAR drivers doing cartwheels. One of them gave me a Mariah Carey, all I want for Christmas is you, except all I want for Christmas is your Venmo money, and then did a cartwheel.
Okay.
You win the absolute crown for off the rails and rambling about cars. Yeah.
Thank you. I always do. When I was at Daytona, I'm always bad at round tables because everybody asks serious questions and I screw around. So I was at Daytona and they had Townsend Bell come in, and Townsend Bell, he drives the car and the Rolex 24, and then he goes and helps with the NBC broadcast. And so everybody's asking him all these serious questions about like driving race cars and stuff. And I go, okay, when you get out of the car and then you go get on TV, what's your TV makeup routine? And so we went into that and they were like, why is this going this direction? And I was like, because I'm here. Like,
but that's the magic. I mean, they have all of these answers kind of prepped in their head. When you can kind of click into that space, and I'm being serious here, when you can click into that space as an interviewer, cause them to shift gears, maybe throw off their balance a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to start to get to like the real stuff underneath that isn't necessarily going to be filtered. Yeah, that's
100%.
That's the way to do it. So I'm going to keep Voltron behind me then for future roundtables.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I went up to Pierre Gasly one time and I said, on a scale from 1 to 10, how attractive is Chris Angel? So,
did he know who Chris Angel was?
That was
no, come on. Everybody knows who Chris Angel is. If only to hate watch him.
Everybody knows.
He's not from America, though. So.
No, he's not from America. So we had to Google the photos, and we were going through the photos, and he gave me an 8.
Okay. That seems high.
8.
Yeah, that seems high.
Great. Yeah, we have a spreadsheet of everybody's answers, and so Pierre got an 8. So our Formula One average is an 8.
Wait a second.
Is Chris Angel way more attractive than I ever thought?
Hold on.
Oh, I have the spreadsheet. Do you want to see the spreadsheet?
I want you to link it. I want us to link it.
Let's do 2 minutes of spreadsheet. If you got the spreadsheet, you can pull it up right now.
Share. Hold on.
Yeah.
I have it bookmarked. It's bookmarked as Chris Angel.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. We'll do this.
Okay. Well, I tell you what. While you're finding that, let me vamp for everybody. Oh, you have?
No, I want to vamp something real quick. Let me vamp.
Okay, you vamp, Bruce.
I'm just thinking. So, Alanis and Michael Andretti were talking about the zombie island where they would be safe from the zombies. And this is a nerdy thing, but there's a famous Italian zombie film called Zombie, in which a shark eats a zombie because it's trying to go towards an island.
Yes.
Wait. Does the shark become a zombie shark?
No.
Oh, well, we were talking about zombie sharks. Yeah.
Because that would be super scary.
Oh, no, it doesn't. It just eats the zombie. But
we were talking about zombie sharks.
Well, yeah. People, zombie. It's Italian. It's with a it's exactly as it's spelled. I was trying to think the Italian.
And we were talking about Italian cars earlier, so there's a connection.
It's all
there is.
Connected.
Okay, and Michael Andretti, his father, Mario Andretti, came here from Italy. So it's all Italian.
It's all Italian.
Share screen. Chrome tab. This one. Okay, can you see it?
There it is.
Yep. Okay. Can you zoom in on it for me? Because it's kind of small for
folks. There is a Chris Angel.
Okay, then let's not worry about it.
Right here.
Okay.
You're fine.
I wish I knew how to zoom in.
No. You're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it.
200%.
You got it. Boom. Yeah, you got it.
Okay. So here's my buddy Parker Kligerman gave me an enthusiastic 10. Love that. Thank you.
That's too high.
It's absolutely not.
Just so I know exactly what we're looking at. This is in response to the question on a scale of 1 to 10. How hot is Chris Angel?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, that is exactly it. Thank you. So we got an 8.5 from my buddy Ryan Vargas. Thank you, Ryan Vargas. Colby Howard, wonderful. Gave me a 19.
I like that. Denny Hamlin, goth and regular. Because
so actually
that's important to distinct.
It is. It honestly is.
This is something that throws people off a lot because it just says Denny Hamlin goth, and so they're like, "Is Denny Hamlin goth?" And I actually
no, it's goth or regular Chris Angel.
Goth or regular Chris, correct?
Yeah.
But the running joke is now people go goth Denny Hamlin. So I actually photoshopped Denny on Chris Angel as a joke, but I haven't posted that because Denny Hamlin would be very upset with me. Anyway, so we were sitting there one time and Denny comes on and I'm like, all right, Denny, on a scale from 1 to 10, how attractive is Chris Angel? And like he does the typical Googling because they always have to Google him. And so he Googles him and he goes, he looks better when he's regular than he does when he's goth. And I was like, okay, then let's do 2 ratings. And he was like, okay, 8.5 regular, 6.5 goth. And so we just gave him 2 entries because, you know, that's great. Good for him. James Hinchcliffe avoided me for days. He would not give me a number. And I said, I will bother you until I get a number. And I eventually got a 2, which was lovely. My buddy Matt Tift, he's great, 8.5. We got a lot. Garrett Smithley gave us a 10 regular and an 8 goth. Just really beautiful stuff here. So we keep track of it. We do our thing. It's quite lovely.
That's incredible.
Now I've worked with Parker before when I was doing some NASCAR sponsorships in a previous life.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he would go with that high of a rating.
He answered immediately.
Wow. Okay.
And he goes, oh, absolutely a 10. And I was like, thank you so much. That's amazing. That's all I needed to know. So, you know, and then we have averages based on series, based on job. So driver averages, NASCAR averages, IndyCar averages, everything like that. We keep it broken down. We do our math, and it's a very important question.
Clearly, a lot of thought has gone into this.
Absolutely.
So I apologize for the barking dog in the background, but I'm trying to do this real quick. And I know we're
Cooper. Get Cooper's rating.
Well, no, I was going to say we should do our ratings real quick.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. So I have the Google images for Chris Angel up here. I'm sharing them.
Favorite. There have been a lot of iterations of Chris Angel.
I would say top left or middle left is totally goth.
Yeah.
Second row, kind of 2 or 3 images in from the right is normal.
Yeah.
The goth look does nothing for me. I got to do.
The goth look that is my thing. I like them skinny, dressed in black with eyeliner.
No, so I got to do. I'll be generous and doing a 3.5 goth.
Oh, that's rude.
Oh, come on, Bruce.
No, but I would give him a solid. He's a 7 normal in this image.
Okay, well you gotta find the one with the red background where he's got like the short-haired look.
This image where he looks like
no, not that one. That one's old.
Okay.
No, if you go back to the main page. Oh no, there it is. The red background.
This one here.
Right no. Down low. One more.
No, the other red background.
This
now
one.
over
the other red background.
Other way, other side. That one right there with the short hair in the middle.
Okay. Yeah, okay. That's basically the same. Yeah.
The red background that looks black.
That's typically the least scary version for people. They're like, oh, okay, he's not goth in this one.
No, that's a solid 7. Whereas the goth thing,
I'd go with a 7 for both. Come on, Bruce.
No. The goth thing does nothing for me. That image, what we're looking at on the left now, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. If not,
that was my
I'm really sorry
that's
right now.
That's a 3.5.
No, that was my laptop background all of middle school.
Okay.
That photo.
Then you are a mind freak.
I am. I'm going to make that my laptop background now, actually. That was my laptop background from age 12 onward. Thank you.
But I'm the only one who's given scores. Seth Smith, I need scores.
I said 7 for both.
You gave me a 7 all around.
Okay. You said, and Seth, your turn.
He's a spooky ripped dude.
I think first of all, I'm shocked looking at, I pulled up the same page. Like, I didn't know that Chris Angel was Anthony Kiedis' younger brother.
He's 54 years old. This man looks good.
I know, but Kiedis is like 60, like pushing 60 anyway. So they could be, but they look like they're related. Chris Angel, I'm going to give him he's a handsome man. I'm going to give him an 8.
Wow.
Overall, I'm going to give him a 10 or an 11 for his abs. I've noticed that I've seen fewer ab photos as he's gotten older. So maybe the abs are down to, maybe they match his 8 right now, but they're better than mine. So
Alanis, real quick before we do this, I find he looks like Kyle MacLachlan in Showgirls in this image for anyone who's seeing it.
I feel like that image is from the time that he was on like a CSI episode or something. It might not be, but there was one CSI episode he was on.
There's a lot of Kyle MacLachlan energy coming from that.
He was like a killer magician on a CSI episode, and I was like, "You can kill me! Like, come on."
Okay.
Pick me.
So
it's fun? Aren't you glad you invited me?
I'm happy we were able to go deep on Chris Angel.
So we've got about 20 minutes of this episode left, and it's your time to shine.
Oh God,
And
me?
in addition to looking at Chris Angel photos and showing them to motorsport superstars, you also write about motorsports. You appear on podcasts. You do a lot of things.
Yes,
and
we should.
Go ahead.
I was to say, Bruce. I mean, we should mention the royalty that's here. I mean, you write for Business Insider, correct?
Yep, I do.
And you've spent just years and years and years in the auto industry. Mm-hmm. You have a book that you're working on.
Yes.
Can we talk about that just a little bit before we get into the racing part?
Sure, yeah.
Because I think that's worth a mention. I mean, tell us a little bit about the book that you have going on.
Sure,
it's not about Chris Angel.
It's not. Eventually, we're going to get there. We're going to do some Chris Angel books. It's going to be lovely.
Cool.
But the book I am writing, I'm actually writing with a co-author. Her name is Elizabeth Blackstock. We are writing about the Rich Energy Haas Formula One team. So in 2019, an energy drink company, a British energy drink company called Rich Energy, became the title sponsor for the Haas Formula One team. They switched from the Haas Automation gray and red colors to this black and gold scheme that kind of called back Lotus and John Player Special and stuff like that. So they did that in 2019. But right off the bat, everybody was questioning it because they were like, what is this energy drink company? How do they have the money to sponsor the Haas Formula One team? Soon people started pulling up records from the UK Registrar of Companies, which is Companies House. And on Companies House, it showed Rich Energy as having $770 in the bank a couple years earlier. And this was a very, very large multi-million-dollar sponsorship deal with a Formula One team, and nobody could add anything up. So everybody started questioning it. The CEO of the company, William Story, he equated his doubters to moon landing truthers and people who think Elvis is still alive.
He is the man with the massive beard, correct?
Yes, the man with the massive beard. So that's the CEO.
I will pull
He's the
a
CEO
picture
of
up
the company.
of him now.
Right off the bat, season hasn't even started. He's like, our doubters are like moon landing truthers. They're like people who believe Elvis is still alive. We are very successful. We are great. And it all set it up to be very weird. You get into the season, things get really crazy. He's tweeting all this stuff just off the rails. And then in September, the partnership ends because there was a copyright lawsuit over the logo. There was all this wild stuff going on. It devolved very, very quickly and very, very publicly. And so we decided we were going to write a book on it. And we are writing a book on it. Yes, that is CEO William Story. We just turned in the book a few weeks ago. It will go through edits and it will come out in the fall. So that's very exciting. I ordered this the other day. This is a die cast of one of the Rich Energy Haas F1 cars. And you will notice that on the nose right here, right there is no logo. So when the season began, there was a logo right there. Mm-hmm. And then after the copyright case, which Rich Energy lost over its logo, Haas had to remove the logos from the car on Thursday before the race. So they peeled all the logos off the cars. And so this diecast is post logo. But it was a very fun adventure. It's a very wild book. I've read it front to back many, many times because we've had to edit it so many times, and I have not gotten sick of it yet. So it's very exciting. I like it a lot.
Now, I don't follow Formula One, but I kind of want to now. I definitely want to read the story. I heard bits about it. Mm-hmm. That's coming out later in the fall.
Yeah,
and
it's
from your website, you kind of got some original documents that no one has seen yet. Can you kind of give a little teaser as to what you found?
So the thing is if I tell you what the documents are, you can go buy them.
Okay, then fair enough.
I won't tell you exactly what they are, but I will tell you that there was, after the case with the bike company, the copyright case, which Rich Energy lost and had to change the logo, there was another very high-profile court case that was not reported on. It was nobody accessed the documents. Nobody could find them. We managed to find the documents and downloaded all of them. It was like $100 or something like that to get all the documents. And we reported out the entire court case. It was the way it happened was really, really wild. After the court case was filed, another document was filed by the representation for Rich Energy, which had represented Rich Energy during the court case with the bike company. A document was filed to no longer represent Rich Energy, which can mean a number of things, most of which are very bad. So it's an interesting journey. It was a very, very interesting journey. But yes, we have, I can pull up the webpage actually. We have all these documents, really lovely documents that haven't been seen. We have lots of interviews. We actually managed to track down one of the people who was involved in Rich Energy before William Story was, because William Story actually, he acquired Rich Energy, the brand. It was a Croatian brand, and he acquired it in 2015. Here's the description of the book. He acquired it in 2015, and before that, in 2012, there were some U.S. distributors. We actually tracked down one of those U.S. distributors and talked to them about the early days of Rich Energy, which was super exciting. In all, we reached out to more than 150 people. We talked to many of them, including more than 40 former HSF1 employees. We reached out to that many. We didn't get to talk to that many, but
sure.
We talked to former HSF1 employees. We talked to everybody. It's a ride. I'm telling you, it is a ride.
I can't wait to read this and hear more about it.
It was an actual product though, because I thought for a while there was
can. Yeah.
Okay. So
I have the can.
There
we
was
actually
a brief period where people were like, is this even an actual product that exists?
Yes,
but okay.
That was definitely an era, and we talk about that in the book. But yeah, I've had Rich Energy before. I have the can in the garage. I actually, for the final chapter in the book, Matt Farah from the Smoking Tire, he did a blindfolded taste test between Red Bull and Rich Energy. And it was quite lovely. We did a very scientific taste test, and that is in the final chapter of the book.
The story is really fascinating. Not the story.
William's story.
William's story is fascinating to me, especially like with the timeline, right? Because I think Formula racing in general, but Formula One has a really rich history of like shysters, liars, and scammers.
We have a whole chapter about it. Yeah.
Being
fantastic.
Being really like a giant part of the team ownership and the sport in general, right? And always kind of a sideshow. But Stuart, like the thing that I remember from this kind of unfolding, and again, like I'm a casual F1 fan. I don't dive in, but this was so fascinating as it was unraveling, partially because you saw Story sort of using the same kind of social media power that we were seeing explode around politics and around other people at the time, to really like, you didn't know if it was smoke and mirrors, if the entire thing was completely fake, or if it was completely real. Either reality seemed completely possible, right? Like, and so I think that it's a really interesting chapter, and I think what will be largely an interesting chapter in human history about how we sort of lost the narrative entirely. We know, you know, the internet suddenly gave people the ability to tell lies on such a scale that they could, you know, really change everybody's perception to the point where they're selling them a racing team, right? Or assuming that they have hundreds of millions of dollars or more that they don't really have. So
yeah, it is the wildest thing. And I tell you, I've read the book front to back so many times. I never get sick of it. It reads almost like fiction. And when we were writing it, obviously you fact check as you write something, then you fact check it separately again. So basically, as we wrote, my co-author Elizabeth and I, we fact checked it as we went. And then I did a round of fact checking. When I fact check something, you go word by word, you highlight it, you change the color of the words to say, I fact checked this. And so first round of fact checking, we changed the font to purple. Second round, we change it to maroon, which means everything's been fact checked. You go word by word for 100,000 words, and it is horrible, but that's what you have to do. And even with that, it reads almost like fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, I know that F1 is sort of famously litigious and they like everything is guarded there. Like you guys have obviously like thought this through, you've done your homework. Like, are you concerned as you go to publish that there's going to be even like still unexpected blowback from Formula One on any of this? Or
I don't know that Formula One is concerned, because at the end of the day, it wasn't Formula One's problem. It was between the company and Haas.
Sure.
And even Haas had a huge heads up about the book. We said, hey, this is coming. We want you to know. They said, we would like to not participate. I said, okay, we're still going to send you all of the questions. We send them all the questions that detail everything in the book. They said, yep, we're still not going to participate. And it's like, well, I've showed you everything that's in the book. You've seen it. You chose not to say anything. So that was your decision. And really, there was no point in the book in which we even needed Formula One to comment, because it really wasn't Formula One's deal.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah. Can't wait to read it. I'm excited.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
It's very exciting. I have all my stuff. I actually bought a piece of the car. So my die cast was.
Wow. You have an actual piece of the car?
Yes, I do. And it's really fun because it's a legitimate piece of the car that I guess they were getting rid of. So you can see on this die cast right here, where above the 8, where there's nothing there, that's where that logo would be. This is that right there.
So we're looking at,
how did you get a hold
just forward of just behind like the nose cone, right?
Yes, just behind the nose cone, right in front of the driver. That's where this is. So you can see on this die cast, that little white piece right there says Haas Automation. Mm-hmm. That's this piece right here that says Haas Automation. So I don't know how the seller acquired this, but it was listed online for a lot of money, and I bought it, and I got it verified that it is a piece of the car, and I bought it, and I have it.
Very cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I have, the car. I have a coffee mug that's Rich Energy Haas F1 Team coffee mug. I have all kinds of stuff. When I go to the racetrack, I hook this onto my backpack.
And for anyone watching, it is a Rich Energy. It is the cover of her book and some text about it on the back.
That is the back cover. Yes, I should provide descriptions for anyone not watching. But yes, so this is.
We have a component for both, so it's good to do that. But yeah, it's the cover of the book.
Yeah. It's basically, it's a giant blow up of a mock-up front cover and a mock-up back cover, and I hook it onto my backpack and I walk around with it. It has a QR code on it, and so people can scan the QR code. And then I took this to the Rolex 24. It's an umbrella with Rich Energy the book on it, and it's black and gold, and it has a Formula One car, and it's really cool.
Is that book swag, or is that Haas swag?
No, this is the book. So when you look at it, it says Rich Energy the book, and it has our names on it.
Gotcha.
Right there. And I designed the umbrella, and I got it printed, and now I walk around the racetrack with it. And I was actually at the Rolex 24, and I popped my umbrella out. And as soon as I popped my umbrella out, Kevin Magnussen started walking behind me. And Kevin Magnussen was one of the drivers for the Rich Energy Haas F1 car.
Whoa.
Did he have any response? Did he say anything?
He did not say anything, but he walked behind me for about 5 minutes. So I know he was having flashbacks.
Okay.
Yeah. So
marketing. That's brilliant stuff. A friend of mine way back in the day when I was going up to the rally, to the SCCA and then Rally America, now ARA, to the Snowdrift up in northern Lower Michigan. A friend of mine who was big into video stuff. He had just it was like an 8x10 thing that he would just hang on his backpack. Mm-hmm. And we're walking around Snowdrift. He got so much work from that, just walking around. Plus the marshals were like, "Oh, he's the official guy. Just let him go around the ropes." So brilliant stuff. Obviously, tons and tons about racing. We're getting close to our time, but can we talk a little bit about the 24-hour race at Daytona? Because Seth, you were there driving an Acura, but Alanis, you were there for the 24-hour race. Can you just tell us a little bit about being at a 24-hour race? I mean, are you awake for 24 hours? Are you that hardcore?
Yeah, so I went for the sole purpose of taking some photos and having some fun. So I didn't do a hardcore, like hour by hour race coverage kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Seth were sitting upstairs, just like talking about stuff, hanging out, having fun. I didn't go super hardcore for the 24. I just went, spectated, enjoyed myself, took some cool photos, and now I'm editing the photos, which is really fun. But I mainly went to enjoy myself, and I stayed until 1 a.m. On the first day, and then I left and I came back the next morning to watch the end of the race. And this is my first 24-hour race, and I really, really enjoyed it, because when you have a 24-hour race, you're not focused on just like, let me just watch every little thing that's going on at every little moment. You just kind of walk around and enjoy yourself and see people and do some things. Oh yeah, here's some of the photos I was editing today. So I'd actually never taken race photos before. I'd never taken photos of moving vehicles. And so I decided to try it out when I was at the Rolex 24, take some moving shots, have some fun. And so I'm working on the edits for those right now.
And if you could give us a quick mention, Alanis, you're a little bit known on car Twitter. Where can people follow you at on Twitter? Because they can see some of these pictures there as well as on our podcast. What's your Twitter?
So my Twitter is Alanis, Alanis, and then the middle initial N as in Nicole, and then King, King. So it's Alanis N King. It was just going to be Alanis King, but some guy named Alan thought he was really cool back in like 2009 and made his Twitter handle Alan is King, and he has not used it since 2009. But it is what it is. But yes, it's Alanis and King. I post a lot of very stupid stuff. I ask drivers to do cartwheels and tell me about Chris Angel. I do a lot of I label the Formula One grid, and those often go Reddit viral because I'll label the Formula One grid on how likely they are to go to the Rainforest Cafe with me.
Mm-hmm.
I do stuff like that, and Reddit really likes it. So that's kind of what I do online. I just screw around all day.
Well, it's not all screw around, because the photos I think look amazing.
Thank you.
Shooting motorsport photos, not easy. It's one thing to stage a car next to a nice background and maybe move it around and get at an event, it's just like what you see is what you get. You can't tell them, hey, can you stop the car for just a second, because the sun was poking through the clouds just at the wrong angle. Mm-hmm. So it is not an easy thing to do.
Well, and I also, because I just do photography as a hobby, and I do a lot of diecast photography. So I'm really excited for my new little Rich Energy Haas F1 diecast, because what I do is I stage them to make them look real. So I have, hold on, I can show you.
I've done that as well with some of I'm a big modeler. Bruce and I are both modelers.
Yeah, that's so hard to do.
I tried staging my 1/25th scale, period correct 1980s 10-car transport loaded with Mustangs, because I'm that guy. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy to stage that stuff and make it look real.
No, it's
not
very
easy
hard
at all.
It's very, very hard. And I'll bring one up so I can show y'all. But I do this a lot. I really like staging diecast photos. But the thing is that photography is just a hobby for me. I don't do it for work or anything. So I actually use a Canon T3i from 2011 with the kit lens that came on the T3i. Oh, my husband's it's horrible equipment for the year 2022. And it really is for the year 2022. It is not the equipment you should be using, but I like it because it challenges me. It really challenges me, because it is hard to make some of this stuff look good in that camera. So
I have a 7-year-old Nikon that's kind of the same thing, and I have a friend out here who's an amazing photographer that does amazing. I mean, he has tripod set up where he's getting Milky Way shots over 3 or 4 hours, and I'm like, dude, how do you do that? And he's just not with your camera.
Yeah, not with your camera, exactly.
Not with your camera.
This is really early on with diecast photos. This is a smaller one. I'm not big on this size. I like them to be bigger. But I basically take a photo of the diecast where I took it, and then the actual edited photo.
Yeah.
I have a
there's a mail truck, U.S. mail. US
Yeah.
Postal
That one
Service.
looks really great, actually. That one works.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a little mail truck. And then let's see. I have an S2000 back when we had the snowpocalypse, and that's actually where I took it.
Oh, that's really cool.
And then I have a GT3 RS here, and that was actually on a bridge. Have my 720S. I love my 720S. This is my windowsill. And then that's the photo.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's the winner of the bunch so far.
Thank you. Then I have my lovely Polaris slingshot and my McLaren F1. And this one was really fun. This was on a trail by my house, on a dirt trail, and you can see the little line of dirt right here. That is where I was kicking the dirt at the car.
Yep.
I put the camera on a timer and I kicked the dirt at the car. And then,
look at the Subaru Rally. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
then
great.
Here is Sebastian Vettel. And then that is how it was taken.
Oh,
I know we have a lot of audio listeners. You need to go to Motor One Podcast on YouTube.
We'll include some of these. Smith, you're going to
be
be doing the post this week, so you need to include some of these as examples.
And I'm in trouble because, man, this is going to be a big post.
Yeah, I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff, and I've never actually done. I've never done moving die-cast photography, and so it was really exciting for me. I mean, I've never done moving car photography, so it was really exciting for me to do moving car photography because I'm so used to just setting it up and doing a specific scene that I've set up. And so doing the moving car photography like here was really crazy because that's not what I'm used to at all. Mm-hmm. And I do big cars too. Like there's a Kia K5. But really it's just this is just a hobby for me. And usually my cars are standing still. At the Bronco launch, I put the Bronco in the lake, which was really fun. I was the only one who put the Bronco in the lake. And so I usually take photos of cars when they are still. And it was really, really fun to, for the first time, take them moving at the Rolex 24. And because it's 24 hours long, you get a lot of time to do that. So I have tons
plenty
of
laps.
Exactly.
That's
so I have
true.
tons of photos that I'm really excited to edit because moving car photos, never done that. Super fun.
You can't show your Instagram too much to Smith because he has a black cat named Scarlet, and I know cat conversation isn't too far away, so we can't show it to him too much.
I love cat conversation.
She's upset. She was sleeping. I have a bed set up next to the desk here, and she was sleeping. Well, she was like half asleep just before podcast started. But it's like, okay, I know it's like about dinner time. I'm going to be about 20 minutes into this, and she's going to be like, "Hey, you beep." Get up out of the chair. You've been in here all day. It's dinner time. So I can hear her scratching on the door behind me. Dinner will come soon, I promise. I talk to her like a normal person.
Hey, I talk to Cooper that way.
We got to wrap up here a little bit. Let me ask one more question because Alanis, you said this was your first 24-hour race.
Yes.
I've been interested in going to 24-hour races, and I'm sure a lot of people out there have been. I've done a lot with NASCAR in the past, and it's like 2 hours, and this is like, but in the pits, not in the general grandstands. I don't think I could do general grandstands. Once you do the behind the scenes stuff, for me and for other people out there thinking about a 24-hour race, what's your advice to them to go experience their first 24-hour race?
Honestly, for me, because I've never done a 24-hour race before, and I've been doing this for more than a decade, right? I've been a motorsports fan for more than a decade, never done a 24-hour race. I think what's really cool about a 24-hour race is you can pick and choose what you're doing. One, because they're still going to be going in 10 hours. And two, you get to be there for such a monumental thing. A 24-hour race is a big deal no matter what it is. And you get to be there and experience that and see people when they're really excited before it starts, and then see people at 8:00 in the morning when they've been doing this for 14 hours. You get to see them then when they're exhausted. And it's just, you get to see all of the emotions of being a human within 24 hours. And it's really, 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 really cool. that was my takeaway.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see at Daytona too, and this was an interesting race because it was so cold, right? Like I think the lows overnight were well below freezing, 28, 29 degrees.
That's cold for Florida.
Daytona,
cold.
Florida. That's super cold.
But like people are camping. Essentially, it becomes like Alanis is saying, it's like it's an entirely different kind of event. You're watching some racing for sure. You're always like racing is always in the background. You're always hearing it. But you're not like participating in the event of watching the sport like you would with any other kind of sprint race or a race longer or shorter than 3 hours basically. So people are barbecuing, they're bringing out like big RVs, they're crazy rigs that they probably only bring to different racing events. I'm trying to like think that what it's like. It's really not like anything else that I've ever seen before because it's rare that you have an event-based thing that's lasting, really more than a day when you consider hauling.
You got to set up before you get there.
Getting out and all that. So
back out.
For me, I've one other experience basically, but this was the first time that I was kind of around it for the entire time. I did not stay up all night too, though. A lot of our colleagues did and did the thing is get the best access that you possibly can to things to suites or to like being, like Smith said, outside of the grandstand or like if you have an RV or like your buddy's RV or something like that, so that you have a comfortable place to go chill out when you don't want to be outside watching racing, whether it's boiling hot or super cold. I think that probably makes it a lot more comfortable. And then you enjoy what you're seeing. You enjoy like getting to see the start, the finish, like exciting times in between. You're talking about the event as it's going on, but you're not like in it constantly. Yeah. So
something you would both do again?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Would 100% do it again. We're actually planning on making me the Grand Marshal next year, me and Seyth.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. We're working on a Grand Marshal plan. Okay. That's right.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Especially for Daytona because you get a Rolex out of it. So
yeah. We're going to work on that. I have a Rolex.
Me too.
I don't.
It's fake. It's fake.
Okay.
I don't have a fake one either.
Yeah. So I was walking around Daytona and people were like, "Oh, nice Rolex." And I was like, "Thanks, it's fake." And then I was posting pictures of it online and I was like, "Oh, so honored to have won the Rolex." And like, there were multiple people who thought I won the Rolex, which was really lovely. And I actually got back to work and my colleagues were like, "Did you win something?" And I was like, no, that was a joke. But people thought I won the Rolex, which was pretty fun. Like you could just like screw around and people think you won the Rolex. Like I swear there are several people out there who think I'm a NASCAR driver because I'm just screwing around all the time. So I won the Rolex. It was really lovely. I had a great weekend.
I'm not gonna pull it out now, but I will show you. I was telling Alanis when I was there, I have a great story about going to China and getting my only fake Rolex. But I'll send you a picture of it because the back of it makes it look like I won in Daytona too. They kind of went all out with this fake. They even described it as a race winner watch. So
wow, that's amazing. I love it. I loved winning the Rolex. There it is. I won.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for anyone watching on YouTube, I pulled it up real quick. But yeah, that's going to wrap up our show. So Alanis, is there anything you want to plug? Anywhere you want people to find you? Anything you have coming up that you want to tell people about?
You can find me online. I'm usually posting about what I have coming up on Twitter. All my handles are the same everywhere. It's just Alanis in King. And I post a lot of stupid stuff that's going to annoy you, but it's great. As far as stuff coming up, I have a book. I do a lot of just random stories. I do random stories for like Road and Track and Top Gear and stuff like that. And I'll always post them. So they're online. You can find them.
Yep. Go find them. Yep. And Mr. Miersma.
Anything happening on Motor One we should know about? You want to tell people about?
Anything happening on Motor One? I mean, I know that we've been invited to a lot of programs over the next month. So I think you guys tune into the website to see, big cars are debuting. There are going to be some big driving stories that we've got coming up. I don't get to write anymore, so I don't think I have anything exciting after writing about the NSX for a little while. It's going to be a minute, but yeah, for sure. We've got a really busy February and then an insanely busy March coming up. So I would say tune into the site, subscribe to the socials, follow the podcast. We're going to have a lot of news for you guys to check out. So
And Seth, what's your Twitter account? Because we definitely want to make sure people can see anytime you post a photo of you trying to wear a helmet.
That's right. It looks horrible. At Seth, Seyth. I was like Alan King. Alan is King. I was on Twitter at 2008. I was
on in 2009.
Well, I wasn't, but it wouldn't matter because Christopher Smith is the most generic name in the entire universe.
That's fair.
Very
All right.
fair.
Well,
so yeah, follow us. We've got Motor One on YouTube, Motor One Podcast. You want to go there. We have the article going up every Friday. Email us. We don't get enough email. podcast@motorone.com. Comment. What do you think on the Aston Martin DBX707? Is it James Bond? Is it something different? Is it Hellcat? Talk to us about Chris Angel. Talk to us about racing.
Yes.
Email us, comment, let us know. Bruce, take us home.
Yeah. Good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We appreciate every comment, every listen, every subscription, everything that you do for us. If you are looking at us on YouTube and you see someone responding to you, it's generally me, and I try to respond to. No, that's not a dig against you. I'm just saying that we actually respond to every YouTube comment, and sometimes it's just thanks for listening, and sometimes it's much more than that. It just I'll be honest, it depends on how busy I am, and B, if you have an interesting comment, I'm gonna probably respond to it. So we try to listen to you folks. So we thank you for everything. We thank you for listening, and thanks for spending time with us. So
and thank our guests for joining us here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank our guests for joining us. Yeah. All right. Bye bye.